Alright, ladies and gentlemen, I hope you're all doing well, and welcome to the showdown between Khorne and the Dwarves. It's going to be myself with Valkia facing off against Grombrindle, who's going to be coming in with the High King Thorgrim here on the Imperial Road. Should be quite a bit of fun. Not often you get to see Thorgrim either. Now let's go ahead and compare him to the more popular pick, of course, Thoric Ironbrow. I'm trying to think, maybe, just maybe, Thorgrim could be, better in niche elite situations. He does have two buffs that buff nearby units. So if you're fighting on the middle objective with a couple elite dwarves, like some hammerers, he does have the High King and the Great Book of Grudges buffs. So this one gives +8 melee attack, and his other one gives 8 melee attack and extra armor piercing if units are fighting near him. You know, I still just think Thoric Ironbrow is just better. The map-wide buff is really nice, but he also has access to runic magic, and Thoric actually has better armor piercing values than Thorgrim. Granted, Thorgrim does have like 100 more weapon strength and way better combat stats. I don't know, it'd be cool to find a niche for this guy. So it is going to be a very elite dwarf build, and I know Grombrindle, he always likes his elite stuff. Like if he's playing Chaos Dwarves, you're going to be getting Infernal Ironsworn and monsters, and if he's playing regular dwarves, it's going to be like Hammer Time. So it is going to be double hammerers with Ironbreakers on the sides. Ironbreaker blasting charges can be very nasty, and it's actually a nice tech against the demons, right? So if Khorne comes in, your armor-piercing infantry for Khorne typically are going to be your bloodletters, right? So lightly armored Ironbreakers can certainly nuke them. Yeah, I think that's a cool tech. He's got one flamethrower unit, Slayers at the backfield, and high ground is going to be some basic minor units. Now, for my army, who would have thought the anti-large bonus would be relevant in the meta against dwarves? But nonetheless, it actually still is. Thoric Ironbrow on his anvil is pretty much an auto-take at the highest levels of competitive play, so Valkia is actually really good at taking down those dwarf characters that are going to be on the anvils. She has good armor piercing, and Sleipnir is super good. So you just pop this down the line on elite dwarven troops, and it will typically do very well for you. For the rest of my army here, it is going to be a lot of warriors. We have two marauders just to hold objectives, but the rest of my army is going to be warriors. We have dual weapons. They don't have the best AP values, but their stats are super good, and just they hit hard, and they have a nice bonus for infantry, which I think is 8. No, it's actually 5. But if they get into combat with anything that isn't like a dwarven hammer, typically they will trade pretty well. And my kind of school of thought was dwarf players really like to rely on their blasting charges. So let's go with like an armored build that is a little bit more sustainable, and then call in minotaurs and other armor piercing characters to kind of support them, rather than relying on bloodletters, which die like almost immediately to any dwarven focus fire, to blasting charges, that sort of thing, right? So Valkia is up in the sky. Over here in the bushes, we do have a couple dual weapon boys coming in, and double cultists. So cultists, I think, are the preferred choice. The exalted heroes of Khorne are pretty good too. They do have bonus versus infantry and have healing potions, and will do a little bit more damage than the cultists and be tankier also because their armor is higher and they have healing. But these guys can summon bloodletters, which bloodletters are super good in this matchup. You just don't want to start with them, in my opinion. I think you bring in bloodletters once the fighting gets a little bit more chaotic, your opponent's formation is more broken, and they'll just trade super cost effectively into dwarvish troops. But if you open with them, I find that like really nice dwarven formations can punish them pretty badly. So Cultist is going to be pulling back here, leadership at 66, the mark of the beast here, as Valkia is going to be descending from the skies and looking to shut down the Iron Drakes while my army approaches. And yeah, she's good for that as well. Very, very annoying, right? Because she's infantry size, so Slayers actually don't do much against her, so just having her nearby and threatening pieces I found is pretty good. So right now, Valkia is going to be landing on the Ultharch Raiders, does immediately take down 3 of them on the attack, which is quite good. And the 2 cultists have moved in, started bashing these miners with blasting charges. No, without blasting charges, but even still, they're going to be setting up their bloodletter summons here in due time, and in the backfield trying to get these Fleshhounds of Khorne around my opponent's army to see what we can find. But some Slayers are nearby to intercept, but I do see them. But even still, the Slayers do push away the doggos. In the middle, it's a little bit scary, but like I said, now that the dwarf army is a little bit occupied up in the high ground, we are going to be calling in some Minotaurs of Khorne, which will do some massive damage against the dwarves if they can. But Grombrindle with good micro, he pulls back the hammers and sends the Slayers forward, and I do the same thing. I pull back the Minotaurs, and we will be trying to figure out where we're going to be taking that fight next. High ground, though, we do get the miners pushed, so these guys are going to be getting pounded and pushed off the objective right here. Meanwhile, Valkia with a fat, erect Sleipnir, that's going to be a hot one right there. Does hit the Ultharch Raiders and does some pretty respectable damage against the very elite Ironbreakers. And now the fighting is on as the Ultharch Raiders are forced into melee versus some very durable Khorne units. And I don't know why Khorne has such a low win rate right now. It's weird. I think they're one of the lowest ranked factions. But I feel like Khorne has like a lot of nice tools. I guess just not having magic is such a disadvantage. Oh, that was cool. That was like a sync attack right there. Valkia getting up and doing some nice anti-large attacks. The anti-large is actually relevant. You can see the big man taking a little bit of damage. Thorgrim does have almost 8,000 HP, so he's pretty damn tanky. Hard to take down, but even still, the champion of Chaos is doing some great damage there. And here in the backfield, we do have the Chaos Warriors of Khorne, which will dominate these Dwarf Warriors. The stats are just too different. 24 and 30 versus 46, 33. with 57 weapon strength and a nice charge bonus. Pretty brutal indeed. But the Minotaurs in the middle did some good work. They put some substantial damage on the Hammers as well as the Slayers, but considering that their buffering was gone, so the unit that you have under them really taking the beating, was pushed back, these Chaos Warriors, I decided to retreat and regroup. The Elite Hammers did give my middle units the business. They were able to just pound these Marauders, and I didn't want to send some Chaos Warrior dual weapons into Hammers. That was just an awful trade. So we're going to be kind of pulling back a little bit, looking to get some Bloodletters coming in, so I do summon out 2 Bloodletters. And this is what I'm talking about, right? The missiles are busy over here. The blasting charges are all busy trying to get the back objective. So this is where Bloodletters are going to shine. Hammers do cost over 1,000 gold. Bloodletters of Khorne cost 800, and it's actually a really cost-effective trade for the Bloodletters. So you guys will see that be going down here in just a moment. In the meantime, Valkia the Bloody battling Thorgrim. Thorgrim probably not being used in the most optimal way. He should be in the middle, providing combat buffs to the units fighting on the objective. He has really good buffs, but he needs to be close to units for it. So now the Bloodletters and the Minotaurs fighting shoulder to shoulder, and without missiles, they will dominate the Dwarf infantry. Blasting charges could be pretty effective at clearing out the demons, but overall, the Bloodletters and the Minotaurs are just a match made in heaven here. Though the Slayers are doing some respectable damage, we do pop the Horn of Khorne, and you can see these Hammer units are just getting butchered down, and the other Hammers are engaging versus the Bloodletters here, and both taking heavy casualties in the process, which is great. You know, skulls through the Skull Throne, all that sort of good stuff. Fun times for everybody. Now, on Objective 1, we parked some Houndos here. I did manage to steal it from the Dwarves, so we did have a triple cap for a moment, but the Dwarves did hold on to the second objective, although I don't know if we actually had that one before. But we do have the 2 cap on the Dwarves for now, and we're just trying to hold for as long as we possibly can. First Bloodletter summon's going to be coming out, so the Cultists. Do you guys remember the days when the Cultists first came out, and there was no conditions for those summons, how stupid they were? Oh my god, Cultists were just like the most OP shit ever. But now we get Bloodletter summoned into the battlefield, which is going to be a great tool for shutting down the Dwarvish infantry here. In the back, the Dwarves do have a little bit of throwing power, so we see the Altar's Raiders getting some nice range attacks. Blasting charges coming in for Grombrindle, and it looks like he does take this objective, but while he takes that objective, I do start to win in the middle. So calling in Marauder Horsemen of Khorne, a really good tool against Dwarves, vulnerable against missiles, but armor-piercing attacks at range, and they have good enough stats with 44 weapon strength and a bonus versus infantry and 32 melee attack to really actually do pretty well against Dwarvish range units. Bit of a duel of fates here. We do have Valkia dueling it out, but Thorgrim Grudgebearer standing firm, reciting from the Great Book of Grudges as he does battle with his Champion of Chaos. But he does have a little bit of help from his Slayers. Valkia, of course, has been abandoned by her fellow Champions of Khorne. Classic Chaos stuff, sitting at 900 HP, and Thorgrim breaks as well. So both characters do break here. Thorgrim breaks, Valkia breaks. It's like a movie scene where, you have 2 very highly paid actors, and then both of them have too big of an ego to lose in a movie, so they kind of like knock each other out at the same time. It's basically like one of those things. It's like Fast and the Furious, right? Like Vin Diesel versus anyone, basically. Bloodletters, though, still grinding pretty well against these Slayers, and the dual weapon warriors with the 110 armor are actually surprisingly tanky, and they trade okay into the Ironbreakers. I actually don't know who would win in a straight-up fight. I would like to think maybe the Ironbreakers would with the blasting charges, but I don't know. I do think the bonus for infantry and the higher offensive combat stats might give it to the Chaos Warriors, which are kind of like a mid-tier infantry, although I guess they do cost like 1,000, so they're pretty expensive. So Valkia, unfortunately, probably going to go down. She's got 77 HP, is being shot down by some of the Thunders, and it looks like this is going to be the end of the road for the Queen of Chaos, for the Gore Queen here, certainly not having a good time. Horsemen trying to save Valkia. I did move them back here and was looking to get into the backfield, and we do manage to close the distance and get on top of some of the Thunders with those dual weapon Horsemen, and overall not bad damage. Immediately the Thunders start to take some casualties, and High King Thorgrim, I was hunting him down. The Fleshhounds, they got the scent. You know, Thorgrim is in some danger, and they're going to be hunting him, but Grombrindle did bring a cannon back here, which seems a little bit more juicy. Thorgrim, even at 500 HP, is going to be reasonably hard to kill, and the middle objective looking pretty firmly in the control of Khorne. Nice Iron Drake play, and the cool thing about Iron Drakes is their DPS is actually really good, even if their model count is super low. So when Iron Drakes get beat up, they still do quite a bit of damage. But in the middle, the dual weapon warriors really actually do butcher through the Iron Breakers, and now they're going to be having a field day versus Slayers. We also have Marauder Horsemen here providing a little bit of cap weight, and Bloodletter still doing quite good. But the Houndos decided to jump on top of the Thunders. I figured High King Thorgrim was going to either get unsummoned or run off the edge of the battlefield. So unfortunately, my entire army is taking a leadership penalty, whereas Grombrindle's isn't at this point. So that felt a little bit bad. But even still, I noticed we did have a value lead. Neither of us do have healing, so it is kind of a true value situation. And the Doggos of Khorne are nibbling for the Blood God. They are getting those their doggy kibbles right here, as they do get some nice chewing on the Thunders. And from there, a little bit of an opportunity to move back to the cannon. But Grombrindle does pull the Slayers back. But the one nice thing, in land battle, this would be a little bit stronger, but in domination mode, if he's having to keep Slayers back here to protect a cannon, just like a basic cannon, you know, that's like almost 1,000 gold worth of infantry that he doesn't have fighting up on the objectives and supporting and whatnot. So I wasn't unhappy about that, but it looks like more Dwarf Warriors going to be coming in. I tried to get a throwing axe, a really kind of cheeky poke to take down Thorgrim to get that leadership penalty on the Dwarves, but it looks like the Dwarves actually having a respectable fight here. The dual weapon warriors being overwhelmed by the Dwarf Warriors and Ironbreakers. Looks like they're finally going to get worn down, but doing pretty good. I would imagine probably 700-800 value, give or take. Only 500, but still not bad. They were getting blasting charged and focus fired by cannons, and now we get Bloodletters coming in. So now that the missile pieces are also shut down for the Dwarves, the Thunderers and Altharge Raiders, this is where the Demons of Khorne will feast. So Bloodletters, Exalted Bloodletters could actually be really good for here, including the Hellforged Host. Having armor against Dwarves is actually very good. Because oftentimes Dwarf Warriors and those type of units aren't going to be having the best AP values. So I tried to get back here to shut down the cannon, but the Slayers were very valiantly defending it. So we take advantage of the Slayers on the defense, and we do manage to grab objective number 1. So using some Hounds and some Horsemen, and my 2 Cultists to kind of intercept the advancing Dwarvish infantry, we are going to be able to flip objective number 1, and that will lead to a triple cap situation, and the Bloodletters in the middle are going to be enough to capture this. So Bloodletters get in, Ironbreakers going to get cut to pieces, and the Fleshhounds also jumping in to provide a little bit of monster support. So yeah, it's good stuff, man. I'm curious what Khorne's going to get in the DLC. I guess there's a handful of units are missing, and Legendary Lords too. Yeah, Khorne's just such a cool faction. Like, Khorne and Nurgle are so metal, man. I love it. So cannon shooting from downtown and still hammering into the Fleshhounds, and these Bloodletters taking a little bit of cannonball fire as well. Dwarf Warriors and Dwarf Warriors up on the objective. That's going to be an easy blood feast here for the Bloodletters. Bloodletters basically hard counter these type of infantry, so I should be able to maintain that point. Meanwhile, on objective 1, the Dwarves are going to be saturating in with a couple units. We do have the Dwarf Warriors as well as Slayers moving up. But Slayers, what's interesting about Chaos Furies is Chaos Furies are infantry size, so the Slayers don't get their bonus for large here. So what we're going to be doing is swarming them with a bunch of infantry units with these Furies, with the double Cultists and Hounds, and we pop the Horn of Khorne. So all these units going to be rocking like 60 plus melee attack, which is going to be brutal. And these Slayers are just being eviscerated, rip to shreds. Just absolutely nasty stuff. But you know what? It's great. It's a win for everybody. The Slayers, you know, they get to fulfill their oath doing something badass. And the Warriors of Khorne and Demons, you know, they get skulls for Big Papa Khorne. So it's a win-win, baby. Cannon still dropping some shots, putting some pressure here on the Bloodletters in the backfield, but these Bloodletters, like I said, up to 153 erect kills as they just continue chopping through these Dwarvish troops, sitting at 1,000 plus values. That's just great stuff here. Fleshhounds of Khorne, not bad in sustained combat. They do only have 30 armor and 26 melee defense, so they don't last super long, but they sure hit hard, more so against light armor. But Bloodletters coming up, Chaos Warriors coming, and the back objective is probably going to be grabbed back by the Dwarves here relatively soon. The 2 Cultists not going to be able to hold on for that much longer. And finally, we get a bit of an opening here on the cannon. So my 2 Horsemen that were rallying here in my opponent's backfield going to be surging down, throwing axes as they get in there. And finally, the cannon's going to be shut down, which is going to be taking a ton of pressure off that middle objective, where my units have been kind of struggling to push off the very stubborn Dwarves. But like I said, Bloodletters just annihilate Dwarvish troops, Cathay troops, whatever. Any infantry, really. I mean, Bloodletters are just very, very cost-effective in melee. They have a solid bonus versus infantry, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, I think it's +9. Not bad at all. So more Marauders coming up. And on top of that, we got Elite Troopers coming in, so Chaos Warriors with dual weapons. I would say they kind of fall into the elites here. Like, Chaos Warriors of Khorne with dual weapons cost as much as Marauder Champions. They cost as much as, like, Zargard. So I would say they're kind of, like, quantified as an elite unit. Even though, yeah, there's, like, Chosen and whatnot, but that's extra elite. That's elite with some extra, you know, extra sauce. So high ground objective being held by the 2 Cultists, but that one's certainly going to be flipping to the Dwarves. Then the Dwarves got to get the middle objective. The problem for the Dowie right now is this is triple cap territory, and, you know, they're also behind in value. Not by a ton, by about 1,000, give or take, but again, there's no healing here. Thorgrim is not on the battlefield at this point, and the Bloodletters and Marauders are going to be able to easily grind this. So you can see a little bit of scrapping going down here, but the points are just rapidly going in my favor. A couple Hounds looping around the back. Going to be trying to shut down the Altharge Raider, so you can see I'm maneuvering through my opponent's backfield, and I do get up and around and use them to stuff in those Slayers and the Altharge Raiders. Unfortunately, the Hound's going to get buckled off pretty quickly, but even still, just not enough time for the Dwarves, and the Bloodletters and Champions of the Blood God get the job done, cutting through the elite tanky Dwarves. GG, well played. Cool build by Grombrindle, too. His build was turbo off meta. Like double hammer with Ironbreakers and High King Thorgrim. It was rad. I do think if Thorgrim had been a little bit more effectively used, it could have been a closer game. The value difference was only 1,000. It was actually close-ish in that regard. Not so much in the objectives, but if he had just kept Thorgrim on the middle, I think that could have been pretty big. And, you know, providing, like, he would have helped against the Minotaurs with his mass, giving that extra melee attack, which ends up being, like, +16. So, like, Thorgrim does give better buffing than Thoric in, like, a sustained way, but in a smaller radius, right? So if he had been able to fight in the middle, maybe. For the rest of the army, let's see. What else could you bring? Yeah, you got Thunders, you got Cannons. I do think Quarrelers could, not Quarrelers, but Rangers could still be good. They could be spawned in and sneak up and counter Bloodletters and my cavalry. little bit of range play certainly could help the Dwarves as well, but it was a fun one. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. GG, well played. We'll see you on the other side, and, you know, hey, everybody wins. Slayers fulfill their oaths, and, you know, Khorne gets his skulls. GG, take care.